Hello, my name is Rob Weir. I'm a resident of Washington Township. I am been a resident for 21 years there. I've taken up a retirement hobby of wildlife photography. It wasn't really my goal upon retiring, but my bad back kind of kept me from doing the golfing that I thought that I would be doing. And I've always had a love for nature and animals. I've done a lot of hunting and fishing over my life. And I've kind of actually taken up wildlife photography to extend that. I no longer hunt, I do a little bit of fishing. But I've developed this love for wildlife photography. We live in an area that's blessed with wildlife. We've got nearby Stony Creek Metro Park, and a lot of this surrounding area has some natural lakes, streams, and ponds. And I've kind of fell in love with one particular small pond right around the corner from my home, where I actually do most of my photography now. I've got permission from one of the homeowners to sit in his backyard, and I actually sit inside a pop-up camo tent, and I get very close to the animals. They simply don't know I'm there. And I brought today with me some of my favorite pictures of owls that I've taken over the years. This will be my first presentation I've ever done on owls, so bear with me. But just to get started here, the first image is of a barred owl that I ran across at Stony Creek. I knew of the owl's presence. Primarily it was located on one nature trail there, but owls being wild animals like they are, you never know exactly which tree, which location it might be in. So after spending 45 minutes there looking for the owl, I pretty much felt like a needle in a haystack. I was almost ready to give up when I happened to simply glance up to my right, and it was looking down at me out of a cavity in a tree. I proceeded to quickly get my camera ready, and it was mounted on a tripod. The owl was very calm and allowed me to photograph it for probably 20 minutes or so. There's something about owls that are very unique as compared to a lot of animals. I don't know if it's their eyes. They seem like they have a presence, almost supernatural to me. It's like the big game of birding, if you will. They're my favorite bird to be around and to photograph. And I'm actually in awe every time I'm photographing them. They're just amazing animals. This first image is, again, the barred owl that I photographed at Stony Creek in this cavity. I've got a number of shots from him, and I'll slowly advance them as we talk. This is somewhat of a close-up, this first shot. He actually flushed after a time, and I actually was able to capture him looking back over his shoulder at me from another tree. But here he is back in the cavity again. This was on a winter, probably a February afternoon on a gloomy day. I was the only one that I saw in the entire area. So it was just kind of the owl and myself, very intimate experience for me, possibly my favorite wildlife encounter of all time. This is a different owl, also at Stony Creek. There was a tree that this owl liked to hang out in. And again, you would make one trip there looking for it at his favorite tree. He wouldn't be there. You might get lucky the next time. I think out of possibly 6 total visits at for this particular owl in this tree, I was fortunate to find him 4 of the 6 times. Every year, Lake St. Clair Metro Park has what they call, I don't know the exact term, but it's an owl weekend. And they will have a wildlife rehabilitator come in along with some owls that he's brought back to reasonable health. They might have been hit by a car, ran into a fence. A lot of them have wing damage. They can no longer fly. So they're captive birds, and he brings them in to show families, nature groups, anyone that would like to attend that have an interest in owls. I happened to attend one of their shows, found it most interesting. What's nice is they have a variety of owls. It's not just 1 or 2. Some of the owls that you may have never experienced on your own, I was able to see that day through their presentation. That is actually, this is an owl that I actually found over at the Harrison Township boat launch at the end of the Clinton River, the Harley Ensign boat launch. This owl was famous locally by birders. It inhabited one particular pine tree right by the boat launch and the DNR facility there. This is a northern saw-whet owl. These owls are very small. They're basically no bigger than the size of your hand. And he was very generous in allowing me to see him on a number of occasions. Part of the problem was, depending on where he roosted in the tree, he would be obscured by pine needles. I got lucky on this shot here. As you can see, I got most of the owl uninhabited. Another version, there's another shot of the same owl. Owls that roost have a habit of regurgitating the prey that they capture. They can't digest the bones, the skulls of mice and rodents and that kind of thing, so they regurgitate a pellet. So a lot of people that are serious about looking for owls will actually roam the forest floor and actually spend more time looking down on the forest floor rather than up in the trees for owls. They look for these pellets or the droppings from the owls that accumulate at the base of the tree, kind of a whitewash, if you will. So a lot of the experienced owlers find their owls through looking on the forest floor. This again was the Lake St. Clair show. This is an eastern screech owl that one of the people attending there was walking around showing the family. This is a red phase of the same. They have a gray and a red phase, the screech owls. Again, they're very diminutive owls, as you can see here. There's actually the gray and the red shown together by the handler. A friend of mine, knowing my love for owls, he's an experienced carpenter. He actually made an owl box for me and was kind enough to bring it over and put it 16 feet high up in a tree in my backyard. So I took a picture of it here. Unfortunately, it's made a great home for squirrels. I have yet to have my first owl take it over as a visitor, but I keep hoping with every visit out there that I'm going to see a pair of little eyeballs looking back at me out of the hole. This was actually made for screech owls. Stony Creek, again, being so close to my home, I probably spent more of my time there looking for owls, seeing owls, than the other parks combined. But this owl was kind of surprising, in fact, that you could actually view this owl from the entrance into Stony Creek on Shelby Road. You could pull off on the shoulder, and this group of great horned owls took over a hawk nest and occupied the nest, raised 2 young, I believe, in it. So I actually filmed this owl sitting inside my car on the shoulder of Shelby Road. Not too often you can sit in your car and shoot wild owls. Again, this is the same great horned owl. It's an adult. Lake St. Clair Metro Park is home to a resident pair of mature great horned owls. They are famous for annually raising a brood of chicks in a galvanized bucket that was put up by a birder many years ago after the natural nest blew down from a storm. This climber climbed a large tree and, with the use of some screws, anchored a galvanized bucket in the tree. And we'll see this in some later pictures of actually the chips. Again, these are the great horned owls of Lake St. Clair Metro Park. The adults often sit off to the side where here's the young occupying this galvanized bucket that I had mentioned before. The park has created a viewing area where they've marked it, and they don't like people to get overly close to the owl, so they suggest that you don't get beyond their marked area for viewing the owls. But they can be seen, the young can be seen early in the year, March, April of every year before they fledge. Sometimes the parents will be with them. This is a long-eared owl. And this owl was one that was high on my list to see, but they're very elusive. They're hard to find. They tend to stick to very thick grapevine tangles, evergreen thickets, where even if you find them, they're very hard to photograph. I was actually over photographing an eastern bluebird again at the DNR access at the end of the Clinton River one day when someone asked me if I had seen the long-eared owl that day. Well, I had never actually seen any long-eared owl, so I was thrilled to hear that one had been sighted. She walked me over and showed me where this owl was sitting in a deep grapevine tangle. I was actually shooting through a cyclone fence into like a wetland area, if you will, and through a tangle of branches, so the photography isn't real good, but you can kind of get an idea how beautiful these owls are with their long ears. Very distinctive coloration. Another owl that's become common in recent years in this area are the snowy owls. They normally inhabit the far Arctic regions in the summer seasons, and only during the midst of winter, if they get in a very hard winter up there, especially some of the juveniles will migrate south where the weather's a little more forgiving and easy for them to make a living. There's other times that the vole population, mice population up in that area will collapse where they have very little prey to look for. So they'll migrate hundreds of miles south looking for food and better weather. I captured this owl here in Macomb County on off of Romeo Plank and 34 Mile Road. It was in a farm field, a cutover corn farm field, and on a sunny day it provided some wonderful photos for me. Again, this is the same snowy owl. This is on the barn of the farm. I happened to catch it one particular day. They're notorious for roosting on top of buildings, on top of homes, on top of barns, other structures. A lot of people go up in the greater Saginaw Bay area and they find them on telephone poles, and they commonly are photographed up there. This particular owl, there's a subdivision near the town of Algonac that is right on the edges of where the St. Clair River dumps into Lake St. Clair. And there's a subdivision up there by the county tower where these snowy owls are commonly hang out on people's rooftops. I think they actually hunt the St. John's Marsh up there during the nighttime. One of the big things that they actually get is the ducks. The water remains open up there. It has a duck population all winter, and they feast on ducks during the wintertime as well as supplementing their mouse and vole diet. But this one was photographed on a chimney on a person's house up there in the Algonac area. As was this. This is a different rooftop here for a different snowy owl. This was at the Harley Ensign place where I photographed the other saw-whet owl. He's looking out over Anchor Bay here. You can see the ducks in the background, which is his prey. This is on the breakwall at the mouth of the Clinton River as it dumps into Lake St. Clair. The juveniles tend to be dark in color. The more white the owl is, they tend to be adults. As they age, they lose some of their dark coloration. This bird was sitting on the beacon tower. They've got a flashing light at the end of the Clinton River marking the rock pile, and he was helping himself to the structure there that holds the light that beacons boaters so that they don't run into the rock pile. Again, a very dark bird. This is undoubtedly a juvenile. Here's one of my rooftop birds again at the Algonac subdivision. Now this one you can tell is more of an adult bird. There's very little dark coloration on this bird, indicating again that it is an adult. Against a drab winter sky, a white bird against a drab winter sky kind of makes for a bland picture, but nevertheless they're sensational birds to see in any environment. I prefer them in a more natural environment instead of on a rooftop, but find them where you may. They're always wonderful to photograph. A friend of mine in Ontario is a fabulous photographer. His name is Mel Diat. And Mel has granted me permission to show some of his short-eared owls. This is an owl that inhabits southern Michigan farmlands, large expanses of open fields where they can find mice and voles. They actually kind of fly and hover over the field and dive down into the field to capture their prey. They'll commonly sit on fence posts like this. A lot of times right at dusk, photographers that know the area that they inhabit, they'll go out and shoot them under very low light conditions, so you need a good camera with the ability to shoot under low light to capture these birds, but they're very striking birds to photograph. Another one of Mel's photos here, captured on a branch. I think he took this actually out of his car. Beautiful coloration on these birds, elongated birds. short-eared owls. They're one of the prettiest of all our owls. He's got a particular farm that he found up to 8 owls on one particular winter, but unfortunately they don't return every year, so it's kind of a now you see them, now you don't, hope to find them again type of thing. He's got some very striking images of them. They're wonderful birds. I like to make collages, kind of my hobby. Not only do I make individual photos or like individual photos, but I'll make a collection of photos into a collage. This particular collage is an assortment of many of my owls that I photographed. Just another way of enjoying them or seeing different species on one particular print. I guess that's the end of my presentation, folks. I appreciate you watching today, and I'm hoping all of you get a chance to find these fabulous birds sometime in your walks in the woodlands. They're magnificent to see, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.